When you spend a day at the beach, you may not realize all the important things that go on in the marshes to make that day as fun as it is.
Actually, the marshes are important for a lot of reasons. So, Georgia and South Carolina, we have about a third of the entire coastline salt marshes. So we're actually a buffer barrier all along the East Coast. And the salt marshes do a number of jobs. So one of the first things that they do is they provide habitat for birds, fish, mammals, and some of our marine reptiles like sea turtles. So you actually have animals that are using this for habitat. It's actually the Spartina grass. Its job is actually starts in its roots. And what it does is it holds onto the soil and keeps that soft, silty soil from eroding away. It actually will help with water filtration. It'll actually help clean the water. So what it's going to do is it's going to absorb some of the minor pollutants. It's not going to clean up a major pollution event, but for minor pollution like a little bit of gas coming out of a boat or a tiny oil spill, and what I mean by tiny is like one boat leaking a tiny bit of oil, not a whole lot, it will actually clean up and filter out pollutants through its root systems. It's actually got rhizomes that are inside the roots that actually eat it. The salt that is on the Spartina leaves is on the smooth cordgrass is actually the cordgrass filtering. So they need fresh water like you or I to grow, and so what they'll do is they'll push out the salt through their leaves, and so that's why it collects on there, and then it washes off with the tides in some areas. So because they can't use the salt. If they get too much salt, it actually stunts their growth. So instead of being 4 to 5 feet tall for a strand of grass, if they get too much salt, they'll only be like a few inches tall. Ooh, we got lots of wonderful indicator species. My favorite is the periwinkle snails because their abundance, they're a common species, they're not an impacted species, they're not commercially fished. So they're a great indicator species on the health of the marsh because they're one that most things people are leaving alone. So if something significantly changes with this species, we can kind of tell. Another indicator species actually in our marsh is actually the Spartina grass. The abundance and health of our Spartina grass is actually another way to tell us how healthy our marsh is. So, for example, behind me, if you can see, we have a lot of marsh that is just smooth cord grass, and that is perfect and ideal. But we can also tell when the sediments are accumulating and these hammocks are getting taller, because then we start to see other high marsh species and an increase in diversity in terms of the plant life. And so that gives us an idea of how our marsh is doing too, how it's changing a little bit geologically over time. Another symbiotic relationship that we have in the marsh actually is kind of the periwinkle snails and the Spartina altiflora. The periwinkle snails are basically taking care of the Spartina by removing fungus and algae that can make the plant very sick. And so they're kind of keeping the marsh healthy and happy that way by keeping that smooth cordgrass going. We have numerous organisms and animals that coexist and utilize each other within the ocean, and we only have 5% of it explored.
The marshes provide a buffer that protects our beaches from flooding and erosion so that we are able to enjoy a day at the beach.